Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you've had a good morning. My name is Shaul, and I'll be doing the What's New in Revit Architecture 2023. Yes, so welcome. Let's get going. All right, so the next, on the agenda is basically we're going to introduce the topic. We're going to look at some of the features. They divided into, we've divided it into a couple of segments logically, and there is, and then we're going to conclude at the end of the session. All right, so Revit has obviously been introduced 2023, a month or two ago. And there's plenty of features, big, small, in between. There's a high percentage of these features are driven by the wish list of users that is voted for by the users, and obviously some is also a long-term process, I believe, but I'll discuss that a little bit later on. Alright, so we're gonna focus on the features for architecture. So and I'll discuss it a little bit, show a little bit on Revit, and then let's get going. All right. So first up is just looking at the design productivity. Stuff, new features that make you work faster, specifically on just your day-to-day works. All right, on the right-hand side is many small little features. We're not going to look at all of them. On the left, I'll just focus on a couple, and then we'll move on from there. Right. So first up, I'm just going to look at measuring in 3D. It's a small little feature, but very useful. If I go to Revit and just go to a 3D area, what you can do if you zoom in, perhaps I'll go to the measure tool right at the top. So this is 2023, looks the same. There's some obviously differences, but if I go measure, you'll see that I can select on a 3D item, and I can read very quickly the distance. So that's quite nice. It allows you to do that very quickly, and it allows you to measure in 3D. In the past, you could only measure in 2D, so you had to go to a plan or elevation and go and do that. All right. Then also picking a work plan. It's an actual improvement, I guess. If I go to Revit again, and perhaps I want to create a in-place component, so I'll go to model in place, and typically when you go to create model in place, it's kind of like creating a family in your project, as opposed to creating the family in an external environment. Right, so if I go model in place, obviously I select, maybe I want to create just a generic model for now. If I want to create this now on a specific face of this building, maybe on the roof or on the side of the building. In the past, I had to go and create a work plane by going through the motions, but this time I can just go and say pick a plane. All right, that saves a little bit of a quicker way. You just go pick a plane and you select the face that you want to work on, and just to show you that it's there, I'll click show, and you can see there's the work plane that I've just picked. So obviously if you want to change the work plane, you just go back to pick the plane, and then I'll just cancel now. Alright, so the picking of the plane is there, as opposed to if I go model in place again, I'll just kind of select something. Instead of in the past, you had to go into this dialog box and then go and say pick a plane, and then go and select the plane. It's also got a shortcut, as you can see there, which speeds things up a little bit. All right. Okay, I'll just cancel that once again. Right. Looking at the placement for families, basically it remembers the plane. I'm not going to show you, but it remembers the plane that you've selected, like we talked about now, when placing or inserting families. So meaning that if you select the top of the table, so you've got a table and you've got or a floor and you've got furniture on it, it'll remember that floor that you place the objects on. In one example that I saw, they had a little table and they placed saucers and coffee cups and stuff on that table, so it kind of doesn't default to anything else but that previously placed work plane. Right, I'll show you the duplication of the materials and improvement on that. If I go back to Revit, when you in the past, when you go manage materials, you had the ability to, if this is the material browser, I'll just expand it a little bit. At the bottom here, you've got your material libraries, and at the top here on the left, you've got your materials that's in the project, and on the right, you've got the properties of the materials. So in the past, if I had to right click to duplicate the material, it only duplicated the material in its name and not the appearance asset. So basically you had to then go and duplicate the asset as well if you want to change, the coloring or whatever. Now in 2023 you've got that in one kind of right click. You would duplicate the material as well as the corresponding asset that it uses. Right, in the past it was a little bit illogic, because if you duplicate the material here in the material library, you would expect the material to be duplicated, but obviously the asset remained the same, and it might have been shared with other materials. So in this case, you've got the option of doing it as in the past, or the asset as well. So which means that if I do that, you'll see the name has changed here, as well as there is no other shared asset with this particular information. You also see that the name of this asset is smooth black and a 1 in brackets, and if I go back to the previous one, the original, there's no kind of little 1 in brackets. So the naming of the asset is unique, right, which is a very valuable feature. Right, this is a user feature. I actually also voted for that in the past, because in that little wish list of the forums. Right, so that's great. Moving on, and the last of this little section is that we're going to look at is that we can now have server paths for materials. Right, so what that means is that if you have images on your materials, I'll kind of just focus on like brickwork. It's got an image over here that defines the brickwork. That image can be a shared area, meaning that you can, for instance, in Autodesk 360 or docs, you can create a folder, and if another person opens that file, and they also have access to Autodesk docs, the same project, they will not have a blank wall. They'll have a wall that has that particular image as well. Right, that also helps with the cloud projects, meaning that you can create folders and put all your images in there, and then obviously share it amongst most all the stakeholders, especially working from home, that sort of thing. You don't have to have a kind of emails images up and down. Right, so that's quite nice addition. Right, that also helps with the projects that are in the cloud, that it kind of helps with the representation of the images on the model. All right, it's basically based on Autodesk Docs or 360 and the cloud path. All right, server path for the materials. Good. Let's carry on. Right. There are obviously there's lots of other structural and MEP features that obviously I'm not focusing on, and I'm just focusing on under the simulation, just the interactive solar studies. It's basically a little bit of a if I just move to the solar studies or solar analysis, it's basically showing the sun path on my model, etc. And I can then go and animate that. Obviously you set it up. This is just the default model that you open up normally, but at the bottom there I'll go to the solar study, and what that will allow me to do is at the top is the new feature. You can set it up. You've got sliders to slide left and right, the speed of the animation, the shadow intensities, etc. There's also presets and study type that you can adjust. Currently it's a multi-day, so I'll just play that, and you'll see that as I play it, the sunrises and sets, and it's kind of playing in a loop. So and obviously there's a speed involved, etc. So I'll just kind of reduce or just kind of stop it. Okay. Alright, so let's cancel that. It's kind of it's a multi-day one, so it's basically going through the whole year, and that's why it's kind of just playing and playing and playing. It's from day one or till 365 days. So and there's the speed that I can set. Now if obviously there's no stop button, so at the bottom there I have to go to stop it. If I just say single day, which is what I intended, it'll kind of just I'll say play and loop. It kind of just works in a single day, from 10 to just a couple of minutes. So obviously the little preset there wasn't very well designed. All right, but anyway, okay, so you can on my part you can set that solar study, and it's got sliders that you can play and push speeds and things on. Alright, so that's quite handy to interactively look at the information. Right, obviously these are set up. If you go to the little sun, you go to sun settings, and there you set up the multi-day from say sunset to sunrise, rather than just a couple of minutes. Obviously you've got the date, time and place, and that'll then work slightly better, because I went sunset to sunrise, so it kind of loops through the whole system, and I can play it in a loop, so it just goes through. Obviously I can decrease the speed perhaps, then it goes slower. I can increase the speed, then it goes faster. Alright, etc. Okay, so I'll just turn the loop off. Shadow intensity is a little bit hectic, so I'll just move that off. Anyway, so you can set it up at the bottom there, sun settings, and then obviously do the solar study at the bottom. Right, as I indicated there, the little presets and the sliders, which is great. Just a footnote on that, you can also export this animation just by going file export. That's been around, it's not a new feature, and then perhaps present it to your stakeholders. Right, just looking at the interoperability, they've increased a lot of this, meaning that there's lots of enhancements with regards to format, CAD, file improvements, IFC, mapping. So they've improved a lot of import-export sort of scenarios with regards to CAD files that import. Just on that, there's the speed and the consistency has been improved. There's some of the it's obviously been updated to new versions like format that you can pull in, and yeah, so there's lots of I had a look. It is very similar, but there's obviously a lot of improvements. The mesh capabilities, also I had a look, specifically a SketchUp import, and what's nice about the SketchUp import or the OBJ imports and various other imports, you can actually then override the lines that you know, the particular edges. You can override their colors, and in so doing, the objects are, or the mesh are, overridden in its color. One thing that I did saw is that on the SketchUp side, it's not the mesh triangulation isn't you can't switch it off yet. Now I believe that it's still coming. So, but specifically other formats like OBJ or 3D STL formats that do have also meshes, you can you obviously can switch those meshes off and on. Then also the DWGs also they also still in the works. So if you've got AutoCAD meshes, it still shows the triangulation, which is not you know, in this version. But I believe obviously Autodesk has seen the need to reduce the triangulations on the meshes as you import it. So obviously they are working on it. At this point, you can override graphics in the view with regards to the coloring of the objects. So it's basically selecting the item, right click, override graphics in view like you do any other component, and then you can just set the colors. Right. Alright, looking at the cloud and data area, here is where a lot of improvement has come in. Basically, it's centered on the cloud. So basically, if you are you know, collaborating with other stakeholders, maybe they've got Inventor or they've got other apps, make sure that you start moving into the cloud, because that's where, you know, the transition works. Even you know, with regards to Microsoft and the Power Automate, meaning that you can upload your Revit model to the cloud. Obviously, it's a database, and it gets translated to other formats in the clouds, Autodesk Docs mainly, and for instance, in the Inventor side, you open up Inventor and you access that data exchange, and it imports your Revit model from Docs into Inventor as kind of a background to work around. Obviously via Autodesk Docs. Also the Power Automate, meaning that or the Microsoft side, it's also added now that you can upload your Revit model to Docs, you exchange it, and the data behind the database inside Revit can be used to you know, be interrogated and certain results shown in kind of an Excel sheet or a database, Microsoft database, Access, or even other apps. All right, but the cloud has that connector. You can also with this whole process, obviously Autodesk Docs has a desktop connector app that you install locally on your PC. There you can just drop in the AutoCAD or the Revit file, apologies, create a little folder, and it obviously syncs to the cloud. So you don't have to actually upload it to the cloud, you just dump it into a folder if you're not kind of interested in that, and then it will be uploaded to the cloud and accessed by you know, other stakeholders. Right, so there is a process involved, but it becomes easier and easier to share your models with other stakeholders, obviously via the cloud. Right. Lastly, it's just the rollbacks. There's also a cloud-based model. Basically, it's an improvement. Obviously, just to give you an idea, if you go File, Save, you can save your project as a cloud model. What it'll do, it'll just update or upload it to the cloud. You don't have to share anything or whatever. It's just kind of a cloud model, and later on it sits on the cloud, and it's kind of obviously backed up. As you save continuously, it'll have revision numbers, and then at some point you can actually roll back if to a previous version. And in the past, when you roll back, it disregarded the future versions, meaning you maybe have version 1, 2, 3, and 4. You add version 4, you roll back to version 1, version 2, 3, and 4 is gone. Now those aren't destroyed. You can actually roll back and forth, which is great. So it keeps all the versioning in the cloud as backups, which is great. Okay, so these enhancements obviously was asked for. Clients asked Autodesk about this. People voted on it, and it gets added. Right, then looking at the design optimization, it's basically focused on Dynamo, and Dynamo basically has been around for a while. It's kind of creating macros within your scenario or your buildings. These macros can be reused. An example maybe, select all the doors that's larger than 900 and change it to 762 size. That sort of macro that you can just click a button and it does it in your project, and you can reuse it for each project as you go along. Now they've just improved it. There's a little bit of a screenshot, so the interface is slightly updated. It is now version 2. Let me just show you a little bit. I'll go to Manage, and I'll go to Dynamo on the right there, and it kind of then opens up the Dynamo player. I can say new, not the player, actually the designer, and I can actually go and manipulate, not manipulate, but there's my context, and here's all the commands. So if I want to look at geometry, I can go create points. I click on the little goodie, and it opens up then a node that you need to input an X and a Y value, and then it creates a point in this scenario. Right, so it just it's kind of a script writer. You've got all the commands, and that's also the backbone of generative design. Now we'll talk about that if I close this. Generative design is if I go back to Manage, there's the studies that you can create, meaning that if you've got a floor plan, you can place, say, different objects in a grid, or you can place objects so that it maximizes your view to the outside, etc. So these are Dynamo scripts that are just enhanced. It's kind of a packaged, and you as a user can use these. They are available here, but you can also obviously create your own, creating or knowing Dynamo to create these packages. All right. Obviously, this whole scenario has been improved. New user interface, new types, input types of when you do generative design. There was a restriction on certain types, meaning if you could only perhaps put whole numbers in, now you can put decimals, etc. All right. Okay, so they're continuously improving the Dynamo environment. Right, here we're also going to look at a couple of the specific documentation efficiencies. As you can see on the right, again, there's lots. I'm going to look firstly at the project browser icons. So if I go back to Revit, you'll would have noticed on the project browser on the side here, you would have seen these additional icons. These obviously you can turn off and on. I'll just keep them on. Now what they suggest or tell the user is that if I've got a sheet, I'm just going to go to plans. You'll see there's two views on this particular sheet, level 1, level 2. If I delete level 1, you'll notice that the icon there next to level 1 is now not blue, so that because it's not placed on a sheet. If I drag and drop that again on this particular sheet, you'll see that it turns to blue. Right, so that gives you the indication of which views are placed on sheets, which is great. So some of the views aren't placed, like in elevation, so maybe I'll go to the elevation here, and I can obviously place the north elevation. However, I just want to show you a different new feature. If I select, say this is the south elevation, at the top here I can switch it to a the north elevation. So you can swap views out when you go to the particular view. Select it and just swap it out here at the top to show another view. Right, so that's quite nice. Obviously the icons will update here at the elevation area. Right, that's the swap views on sheets that I showed. Right, then if you've got schedules, there was a filter option by sheet, but that was typically used on keynotes, but now it's kind of spread to all the schedules. Right, what it means is that if you've got a schedule, let's go to a site plan. If you've got a site plan and you've got a schedule, in this case, planting, you can filter by sheet, meaning that it will show all the plants that are visible on this sheet. If I kind of delete a view so that I don't see any components, the schedule will also be empty. Right, let's try that. So I was going to edit the schedule. There's a little schedule. It shows a couple of items, and I'll go into the filter area and I just say filter by sheet. Right, so basically if I go back to that sheet, site planner, and I delete the views that contain these components, that filter or that schedule will be empty, meaning it doesn't show any trees in this case or planting in the sheet. Right, that works well if just undid. That works well if you've got focused schedules, meaning that you focus this schedule on floor plan 1, and you just want to show how many doors are on floor plan 1 kind of thing, and it doesn't show all the other doors and all the other views, and very quick and very easy. You can just filter the schedule by sheet. Alright, okay, it has been there, the concept in keynotes in the past, but they've obviously just added it to all the schedules, which is great. Alright, as you can see on there on the right, there's lots of other additional categories that you can tag. There's the project icons, okay, that we looked at. Contour label direction you can swap. So if you've got a site, you can create a contours labels, and you can change their reading direction. Right, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that at this stage and carry on. Alright, so basically these that we focused on were kind of just ones that I wanted to show, but there are what they call speed improvements or under the hood improvements that's not kind of visible or can be shown. I suppose you can compare versions to versions, but on the right hand side there's the view performance have been increased. Shape editing of slabs have been increased. There's linking of DWG files are faster. Copying large numbers, so memory usage is enhanced. Copying and a lot of elements. And also IFC improvements to import them and work with them. Alright, type selector also loads instantly, so if you click a button, everything is there. Alright, so which is great. So seeing these improvements year by year obviously increases the performance, and it just enhances the user's experience with the software. Alright, some of the features, if I can just recall back that mesh, the first thing I kind of tried with that mesh when I did it is to import a SketchUp model, and it didn't work well, but there are other formats that does work. So this is a start in that specific instance of great things to come. So obviously Autodesk is working on that. They realize the need for it, and hopefully it comes soon. And then there's other ones that I can also think of. The sharing of the information to Inventor and other tools, which is great. So that's nice. All right. So I'm sure Autodesk will expand on those features and include it perhaps on the next release. All right. So thank you for attending. Let me just check on the website if there's any questions. Other than that, you can email me if there's any questions there at the bottom, and I'll respond via email. You're welcome to do that if there's any questions, or if you've got a need for us to just help with something, maybe the installation of the new features or the new software. What I typically suggest normally to customers, you can install it, great, but because it's fairly new, just install it and play with it. But your commercial software that you still use is maybe the 2022, and keep on working on that. And then once kind of a service pack or whatever is released, then move over to the 2023. I typically suggest that, but it's just a suggestion to how you progress to newer versions. All right. Okay. So you're welcome to email me if you like, and discuss the content. All right. Thank you very much. Hopefully you learned something, and I'm excited with the new versions and the new features, let's use 2023. All right, thank you for attending. Talk again in the next webinar.